Story. When I bought my property in Cedar Ridge Estates, everyone told me the same thing. Good luck with the HOA. I laughed it off. I've dealt with difficult neighbors before. How bad could it be? Turns out, much worse than I imagined. My name is Ethan. 3 years ago, after selling my software company, I decided to leave Chicago and move somewhere quieter. I wasn't looking for a mansion. I wasn't looking for a golf course. I wanted peace. What I found was a beautiful 10-acre lakefront property tucked behind a private road in a neighborhood called Cedar Ridge Estates. The property had something unusual. The previous owner had retained ownership of the access road that crossed the front of the subdivision decades earlier. Most residents didn't know it. The HOA certainly didn't seem to know it. And honestly, neither did I at first. I discovered it only after reviewing every document during closing. The road, the lakefront lot, the maintenance easement, everything belonged to my parcel. The neighborhood had legal access rights, but ownership, that was mine. At the time, I didn't think it mattered. That assumption would eventually save me. For the first year, things were quiet. I paid my dues, maintained my property, waved at neighbors, stayed out of politics. But every HOA eventually reveals itself. Mine started with warning letters. 1 week I received a violation notice because my mailbox was too rustic. A month later they complained my boat dock was visible from certain homes. Then came another letter regarding the color of my garage door. The garage door. A garage door nobody could even see from the street. I attended a board meeting. Big mistake. The HOA president, Richard Benson, was exactly the type of person you'd imagine. Retired, power-hungry, loved hearing himself talk. Every sentence sounded like he was addressing Congress. When I politely questioned a new landscaping rule, he smiled and said, "Mr. Carter, community standards are what preserve property values." Translation. Do what we say. Things escalated over the next year. The HOA began spending money like crazy. New signs, new decorations, new consulting contracts. Nobody seemed to know where the money was going. Every meeting turned into arguments. Meanwhile, I mostly ignored them. Until one Friday afternoon, the day everything changed. I had spent the week in Denver meeting investors. My flight landed around 4. I drove straight home. As I turned onto the private access road leading to my property, I thought I was lost. Cars, trucks, trailers, generators, tents, hundreds of people, music blasting across the lake, children running everywhere, food vendors, bounce houses. At first, I honestly believed some emergency event was happening. Then I noticed the banner. Cedar Ridge HOA Summer Festival. My stomach dropped. The entire festival was set up on my land. Not the common area. Not HOA property. My land. My private lakefront lot. And nobody had asked permission. I parked and walked toward the crowd. A volunteer stopped me. "Sir, event parking is on the north side." I stared at him. "This is my property." He laughed. Actually laughed. Then pointed toward the lake. "Nice try." I wish I were joking. I found Richard near the main tent. He was shaking hands and acting like a mayor during campaign season. "Richard." He turned. "Oh, Ethan." I pointed around me. "What exactly is this?" "The annual community festival." "On my property." His smile faded. "Technically, this area benefits the community." I blinked. "What does that even mean?" He crossed his arms. "The board voted." "The board voted." "Yes." "You voted to use land you don't own." A few nearby people stopped talking. Richard realized where the conversation was heading. His tone changed immediately. "Ethan, this isn't the time." "No, I think it is." What happened next still amazes me. Richard actually told me that because their property was important to neighborhood culture, the HOA had authority to utilize it. authority, over private property, without permission, without compensation, without notice, just because they wanted to. I asked one question. Do you have that in writing? He didn't answer. Because he couldn't. I walked back to my truck, opened the glove compartment, pulled out a copy of my property survey. Then I called my attorney. 5 minutes later, he confirmed what I already knew. The HOA had absolutely no right to be there. None. Zero. Not even close. Then he said something I'll never forget. Ethan, how much trouble do you want to cause? I looked across the festival, at the food trucks, the generators, the equipment, the hundreds of visitors, and Richard smiling for photographs. Then I replied, all of it. The next hour became legendary in Cedar Ridge. My attorney contacted the county, a towing company, and the HOA's insurance carrier. Simultaneously, the insurance company panicked first, apparently hosting a public event on property you don't own creates a few legal problems, especially when nobody obtained permission, especially when alcohol is involved, especially when children are present. Within 40 minutes, the insurance carrier demanded immediate shutdown. Then county officials arrived. Then law enforcement. Then the real chaos began. Richard kept insisting everything was a misunderstanding. Unfortunately for him, documents don't misunderstand. Property records don't misunderstand. Surveys don't misunderstand. The county official reviewed everything, then asked a simple question. Who authorized this event? Richard raised his hand. That was the moment I knew he was finished. The festival ended before sunset. Food trucks left. Vendors packed up. Parents loaded kids into cars. Workers dismantled tents. And then came the best part. Nearly 20 HOA-owned vehicles remained parked on my property. Board members, committee members, maintenance staff. Everyone assumed they'd leave whenever convenient. Not this time. The towing company arrived first. The expressions on their faces were priceless. One board member actually screamed. Another threatened to sue me. A third claimed they were being harassed. Meanwhile, the tow operators quietly hooked vehicle after vehicle, completely legally, because they were parked on private property without permission. Exactly the same rules the HOA loved enforcing against everyone else. Funny how that works. But the story wasn't over. Not even close. Because once residents learned what happened, they started asking questions. Lots of questions. Who approved the festival? Who signed the contracts? Where did the money go? Why didn't the HOA verify ownership? Why had nobody checked legal records? The answers were ugly. Very ugly. Over the following months, independent audits revealed years of financial mismanagement, questionable spending, unauthorized projects, missing documentation. Nothing criminal. At least not that anyone proved. But enough to destroy trust completely. Board elections arrived. Every incumbent lost. Every single one. Including Richard. By overwhelming margins. A few weeks later, I received a letter. Not from the HOA. From several neighbors. Inside was a handwritten apology. Dozens of signatures. Most residents hadn't known the truth. Many assumed the lakefront area belonged to the association. Others believed the board had permission. They felt embarrassed. Honestly, I appreciated that. Because my problem had never been with neighbors. Only with people who thought authority meant ownership. Today things are different. The HOA still exists, but it operates within actual legal boundaries. Imagine that. The annual summer festival still happens every year, just not on my property. And every invitation includes a line that makes me smile. Hosted with proper permissions and property authorization. I may have inspired that sentence. Sometimes people ask whether towing those vehicles was excessive. I always give the same answer. If I had parked 20 vehicles on HOA property without permission, what do you think they would have done? Exactly. The difference is, I simply played by the rules they claimed to believe in. And when the dust settled, they learned a lesson they'll never forget. Just because you have power doesn't mean you own everything around you. And if you're going to take over someone else's property, you should probably check who owns the road first.